Hey, this is the one-man gold mine, the one-man enterprise of professional wrestling and all entertainment, Flynn Hendricks. And you better believe when I'm looking for a good podcast to listen to, I go to my own. I go to the I Know You Hear Me podcast hosted by me, Flynn Hendricks. That is such a fresh perspective for how you should look at life, too. I love that. And then when I'm feeling spooky, I go to my other podcast, Tales from the Haunt, where I want my head shoved inside a 15-pound silicone mask. More. I want to have a bucket of sweat coming off me at the end of the night than just Jeff.
Dogs don't lay eggs, Flynn.
I hate you so much.
Talk to other scare actors about what it takes to get into the world of scare acting. So if you're curious about how people became professional wrestlers, actors, prioritized their mental health, became entrepreneurs, avoided burnout, or got into scare acting, you need to go check out I Know You Hear Me and Tales from the Haunt, available on all podcasting platforms. And I know you hear me.
Wrestling fans, promoters, wrestlers, and anyone who enjoys pro wrestling now have something new to be excited about. The Wrestling Fans International Association, the WFIA, is back. WFIA is an association that exists to promote, grow, and support professional wrestling throughout the world. Membership is free. Your membership includes a free digital bi-monthly publication of the Wrestling Fan News newsletter, association updates, voting privileges, and much more. Please go to thewfia.org, that's THEWFIA.org, and become a member today.
All right, everybody, welcome to the PWZ podcast. We're doing something a little bit different tonight as we're working remote. I'm out in the field, I guess you could say. I want to welcome my very special guest today, someone I've been looking forward to talking to for quite some time, Nutrious X. How's it going?
What's up? How you doing, Rick? Everything's good, and you?
Great, man. Great. I'm glad to have you here. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, man.
Thank you. I really want to know, you've been wrestling for quite some time, and I didn't realize until I was out there today looking on the internet and YouTube how long you've been wrestling. You've been going at it quite some time. So how long have you been interested in, or what made you interested in professional wrestling? That's the first off. When did you discover it? Everybody's youthful story is always something pretty amazing.
Well, I remember like my very first like memory of like wrestling, like that wowed me and kept me entertained was, I believe, in 1999 when Big Show threw Stone Cold through the cage when he interfered. His debut, actually.
His debut, yep.
Yeah, like that when I first seen that, I was like, wow. So as a kid, that's when I started watching it, more entertaining. But I started like getting more into watching wrestling, like living with my aunt.
Did you freeze? You froze.
You hear me?
Yep, you froze for a second. All right. Just repeat that last part, what you said.
Yeah, I was saying that like I really got more into watching wrestling when I started living with my aunt and my uncle. They were into watching wrestling. That's where I really got into watching it after that.
And that was a really good time period that you're mentioning, the Big Show thing. That's when both of the two major companies were trying to steal each other's talents to make their products even bigger. So it was quite an interesting thing. So I can imagine that had quite the impact on you.
Yeah, at that time, I remember also watching like I remember they had WCW on Sundays. I used to catch that in the morning.
Yep, the worldwide show. I remember that, the syndicated show. Yep. So what made you decide that you wanted to do this and jump into the world of professional wrestling? And who did you train with?
Well, at first, like after watching it for so long, and I got interested in it. Like originally, like growing up, I wanted to be like a cop or something, and then like I realized like after getting older, like what type of damage that you can really catch from one of those jobs, and I was like, you know what, let me switch up. Let me think something different. So when I started watching wrestling, I got more into it. I seen like started watching different things of wrestling, more of like the art style of two people coming together, making something bigger than what it is. You know what I mean? So
Right.
when I seen that, as every kid, I mean, I used to wrestle in the parks and stuff. And one day I ran into actual Nick Payne, that y'all know from the House of Payne. I ran
Yep.
into him when I was younger, and he offered. He told me, yeah, I mean, we trained in this room down the hill where we used to live at in the projects, and it. At first, I learned my basics with Nick Payne when I first like started learning, and he started teaching me. I was about, I say 13, 14 at that time.
Yep. You freezing? Damn.
I was at 13. I was like, he started training me. Nick Payne started training me at 13, 14, I think, at that time.
Oh wow. I did come across some videos of you today on YouTube, and I have to say you were quite young. Would that be around that time you debuted, or were you a little bit older than that?
Well, it depends how far back you're looking.
I don't know, man, because I know the Nutrious X I was watching in those videos is not the guy that I was watching that I watch now. You look completely different kid, you know? So it looked like a completely different character, basically, in style.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That was a younger me. That was like I would say trying to learn
Yeah.
as I was young, taking the opportunity of learning and being in the ring at that time. I'd say more like breaking into the business and started like professionally like doing matches is where I started training with Joel Maximo and Fighting Spirit Wrestling inside Brooklyn.
What was it like training with those guys, with the S.A.T.?
At first, to be honest, not knowing anything, going over there was pretty different, but I adapted very quickly because when I was young, I was agile. You know what I mean? A lot more agile than I am now. I moved a lot faster, and that's where I learned more of the lucha style that I use today sometimes.
Hmm.
And it was a big learning experience. At that time, I wasn't as humble, but I was very hungry. So that's when I was breaking into the business.
A lot of kids like that, you know, they might it takes a little while to get it. You grew up, basically, is what you're saying, and became more humble, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it took
Yeah.
me a while to actually become more humble. It took me actually more to maybe a few years ago, maybe 2, 3 years ago, to like humble up and realize certain things.
All right. What are some of your? I know that you've had some battles with a guy that worked a lot around here, and also through Empire and such. He's an Empire original, I guess you could say, is Gino the God. What are your memories of working with him as coming up as a youngster? And now, like I said, when I watched those videos today, I barely even recognize you two in those videos.
Oh man.
We're gonna get
Well,
into today's stuff too. Don't worry.
well, well, well. All right. Me and Gino, we go actually way, way back because when I first started learning from Nick Payne, like the basics and stuff,
Yep.
Gino was around at that time at Empire Pro when they first started doing shows. So you know what I mean. We went kind of away from like a rivalry in Empire Pro in the early days before it started moving anywhere to actually tagging up inside FSW working for Joel Maximo in Brooklyn. That's when we
Okay.
started forming. It was me, him, and Sasha Jenkins at that time formed Certified Sexy, the Sexy World Order.
I remember that. I remember that. I remember they came into Paradise Alley a couple times, using that name. Pardon me, there's rain in the background. Um, so yeah, I remember them coming in there for that. I remember you actually started work in Paradise Alley. I don't know how far into your career that you were. I remember you when I first started coming around Paradise Alley. You had been there. I believe that you were the Alley Fights champion, if I remember correctly, or was it you were the King of Paradise?
The Alley Fights champion at that time. That was actually I caught that title right before I think COVID started.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
working in PAPW, I remember my first match was actually me and Gino versus POP. the
Pyramids
Powers
of
of
Power.
Faith.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
Pyramids of Power. Yes, that
Yep.
was my very first match working with them, and that was maybe about 4 to 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago.
I mean, when you came in there, you made. It seems that's about maybe a little bit before I started coming there, but from what I understand, you from that time you had already made quite the impact. You were a regular, and I believe you went out injured. Is that correct?
Yeah, no. At first, I went in as a tag team, and then I think very like right after that match, Paul Roma decided to put me as a singles guy, and that's where I started becoming heel and catching my little niche. At first,
Right.
I actually defeated Zachariah Gibbs for the Intercontinental Championship
Okay.
when I first got there, and then I went through a whole bus accident, and then after that, I had to put the title down, of course, vacant,
Yep.
and then after that, I caught the Alley Fights title from there.
Yeah. And I'm trying to remember where that went after that because I remember that. Did you come in and take part in the very first Hercules Hernandez tournament? Was
I believe it was the second one that I was in.
the second one
The
that you
one
were on?
where I went against Flash Wallers. Yes, that was the second
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. I remember that was at the Annex in New Haven. I remember that show. And I think that after that show, it might have been your last show with them, if I remember, for a couple years.
Yeah, because after that show, actually, that's when COVID actually started. Like
Yeah, that's
it
when.
was right after that show, so they didn't get to do the next show after that.
Yeah, and that was such a
Um,
weird and interesting time for professional wrestling in general. And that, you know, that time, that particular event, I remember being there for that event, and it was just like some people were afraid to be out in public, some weren't. You know, it was kind of weird.
I was actually surprised with the amount of people that actually did show up for that show, because even for a show that nobody thought that anybody would show up due to the circumstances, a
Yeah.
lot of people showed up. It was a live crowd. I had fun with that match.
You gotta give it to them for taking care of things. They were spraying down the ring constantly and hand sanitizer stations throughout that whole thing. So that was at the height of this. I mean, now we're what almost 4 years later, and the world is we're living. I don't want to say post-COVID world, but it's a little bit different. You know what I mean? But a lot of people are still careful these days. But so, what were
Yeah,
you up? Go ahead.
everything now, everything now kind of opened up more,
Yeah.
a lot more actually. You see more shows running in between the time.
Yeah, I mean, because there wasn't as nearly as many. I mean, they were running pretty regularly. I think it was like bi-weekly at one point between the alley fights and the big event that they would have monthly, and then they ended up, man, COVID just fucked up everything and just turned everything down. You know what I mean? It's just and people still struggling to come back and running basically at a minimum. So
Yeah, I feel like COVID kind of cut down a lot of things for a few people, and not only that for the companies, because at that time when COVID did hit, that's where PAPW had the alley fights, and the alley fights were bumping. The regular shows were good. To be
yeah,
honest, to be honest, at the time, the alley fights were a little bit better than the bigger shows.
yeah, they yeah yeah. I gotta say
Some of the matches were more interesting. You know what I mean?
they were a little bit more raw, I guess, a little bit it's kind of like that really great TV that builds up to like a house show or something like that, back in the old days, or like a pay-per-view or something.
Yeah, that's where you was able to tell more of the story.
Yeah. So then you were out for a little bit even after COVID, and then I believe you came back. You came back to wrestling. Was that when you came back with Empire when Nick and Hakim started running Empire again, or did you work before that at all?
Actually I did that one show where it was at a alley fights. It was me versus Flash Wallers versus Trayvon versus Williams
Okay.
in the ladder match where Flash won the title actually in that match.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I
then
was
from
away
there,
for that.
that
I was
was a year. That was a year, I believe, after COVID started. And then I did that one show, and then a year after that is where I did the show for Empire Pro, where I finally started coming back and doing a little more shows.
and that for Empire you took on Montekia.
Yeah.
I have here in my notes. That was a pleasure to sit there and call that match. I was a commentator for that match. Montekia is another uh, phenomenal athlete. I mean, I think, and as is yourself. And it got, for not being able to see you over probably like well over a year, maybe almost two, that to see you two clash. I mean, I got to tell you, it was pretty much an honor to call the action, and it was just awesome to be able to see that live in person. Do you have any memories of that evening, that match?
To be honest, with that match, there's a lot of history because of knowing Montekia for so long. So I
Yeah.
knew basically what to expect of what type of things he was gonna do or what he was gonna come with. But to be honest, before any of that happened at all, there was no day where I trained. I didn't do anything. So I was just surprised as y'all when y'all came up telling me, hey, good job, good match, good comeback and all that stuff. I was like, wow, I came in here after a year and I didn't know what was gonna happen. I didn't train, I didn't do none of that, and I still was moving.
Wow, that's actually surprising to hear because I was really impressed, especially after not seeing you for so long, and to hear that you hadn't gotten, I guess what they call ring shape, I guess, that's pretty surprising to hear.
Yeah, cause the last that's what I'm saying. The last time I did touch the ring was in that Fatal 4-Way, and then after that I didn't touch the ring until Empire Pro. But it was good to see Empire Pro also make its comeback because that's also it was a lot going into that show knowing that I'm one of the originals from Empire Pro and seeing it come back in Connecticut and getting the feel over there was a little different. Also going in the ring and facing someone that I'm familiar with and I knew what to expect and I knew I was gonna get a good reaction out of it, which I had a lot of fun with it also.
Yeah, I thought that was a great match, but like top to bottom, I thought that show was just really, really good. The only thing I really wish that would have been better about it is that the crowd was larger because that they worked their asses off to build that show and to promote that show, and everybody that went into that ring that night worked their asses off. So if that it would have just been so much awesome, like better if that crowd was just larger. You know what I mean, in that room.
It's also because it's something fresh.
Yeah.
So for some of the fans, like there's familiar faces within the company that you see, and some that's Empire Pro originals also that you've seen before or that shows up for the shows. But after that, the second show I believe had the crowd was a little more bigger than that. You know what I mean? So it's a work in progress also. So as they do more shows, more crowd would attend and they will grow the attention that it needs.
Yeah, I mean it's a great company and it's a great company to be a part of. Nick and Hakim are just awesome guys, and they absolutely love the sport of professional wrestling.
Yeah, I
Do
have a
you?
lot of history with those guys too. You know what I mean? Going up and down the roads, doing shows. Like I said, being trained by Nick Payne. I basically in the business of wrestling, I've grown with those guys.
Right, right.
Like House of Payne, Big Daddy Dre, Gino, Sasha Jenkins. Those are my brothers within wrestling. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and a lot of those guys ended up coming on for that. I guess that one show, the reunion or the relaunch, I guess you could say. So
Yeah.
yeah, I got to work with BD Cruz even after that. You know what I mean, on the show. So in Massachusetts, which he remembered me. He was a very nice guy.
Yeah,
So
Big Daddy Cruz. That dude has amazing talent.
yeah, dude, he's a great guy.
Entertaining very well.
You got to. I'm going to bring up some more recent matches that I want to know about, and matches that I particularly liked a lot. You made an appearance. I'm going back 3 years, so this is probably like in the height of COVID or when it's. Oh well, COVID's really kind of kicking into gear. You worked Shut Up and Wrestle, and you worked somebody I haven't seen in quite some time. I have no idea where this person is or what happened to him, but you worked the Great Nuka.
Yes, in Massachusetts. Yes,
Yeah.
I remember that. Yes, Nuka. That match, I had fun with it. Actually, I faced him also in PAPW. Um, I think that same year, like maybe like a month or two before I wrestled him and Shut Up and Wrestle.
Okay.
The company out there, I had fun. It was pretty good. You know what I mean? Nuka definitely brought the action. I have fun.
Yeah, he's a
I wish he would actually pop out more because Nuka is actually very talented.
he is very talented and extremely nice guy as well. Tried to get him on the show. He seemed he wasn't ready for podcasting at the time, and then I haven't seen him in probably like a year. I didn't even, it's one of those things. It's just so I wonder what he's up to. So
Yeah, I haven't seen him in a while too, but it would be good to see him come back. Hopefully
yeah,
everything is good with him because I haven't heard from him in a while.
yeah. You made a big return to Paradise Alley at one point. Don't worry, we're gonna get away from Paradise Alley at one point after this question. So you made a big return. You cut a promo on Steven Garcia. You guys had Type 1 to None. You guys worked a hell of a battle. You guys went all over the arena floor for the Alley Fights title, and you came up short. Unfortunately, you were beating the crap out of him right in front of his family in the front row. So Garcia is another one of those guys. He's young. He's improving rapidly, I think. And that was the title that you were that you wanted back.
Oh man, yeah, I do remember that beating him up right in front of his family. I'm such a bad guy. Nah, but Steven Garcia, to be honest, I see him. He's making a wave right now.
He is.
Yeah, he's bumping. He's doing good matches. He's everywhere, getting his name out there. But that match, that was something personal, honestly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All the back and forth talk. I had to show him. I had to come with the action. So that's why once I walked out, I seen him coming towards me. I had to crack him. And if he thought that he was gonna beat me up in front of his family, I had to show him differently.
Let's see. And then recently you started working for Coliseum, a somewhat newer promotion, about to celebrate their year anniversary. By the time this airs, uh, it'll be probably a week or so away, maybe 2 weeks away. So you got to go in there for the then champion, probably a guy that's making waves all over the country, really. He's been on AEW television. He's been trained under Dustin Rhodes, but Lucas Chase, you got to work a hell of a match with that guy.
Lucas Chase.
Yeah.
To be honest, at first, I've never heard of Lucas Chase until I came back for the Empire Pro show going against Montekia. That's when I started seeing his name. From that time to the time that I fought him at Coliseum Pro Wrestling, no lie, that dude is serious.
Yeah.
That dude is hungry. No, one of the most hard hitting guys that I've ever. That there has not been a match that I walked out of and I was like, oh man, like I'm gonna feel that tomorrow. Like when I walked out, I was like, I feel it now. Like it was serious, but that was a real eye opener for me because when I came back, actually the first match when I had with Montekia, it was pretty much a fast paced match, more entertaining. But when I went against Lucas Chase, it made me realize like it's time to get back into shape. You know what I mean? There's dudes out there that still has some power and that's still hitting hard.
He's got a style that reminds me of like the old school guys watching TV, growing up in the 80s into the early 90s in a way. You know what I mean? He's a guy
Yeah.
that loves the history of professional wrestling because me and him have had conversations about 1980s Georgia wrestling or random, NWA affiliates, whatever. But the guy, I mean, my personal opinion, he's probably one of the best out there going today on the independent circuit. And how, I think it's just a matter of time before he is assigned somewhere.
No, it's definitely a matter of time before he gets signed somewhere. It's surprising that he haven't already. Seeing how hungry he is, he's bouncing all over the place. You know what I mean? He could cut a hell of a promo everywhere he goes. His mouth is running. You know what I mean? I say within the next year, he should definitely be signed.
And he's always in character. That's the other thing. He's a guy that outside the ring, in front of the fans, the majority of the time he's keeping kayfabe, and that's something that I love and respect about that guy.
Yeah, like when you actually talk to him, and you know, what I mean, getting to know him or having a conversation as being one of the guys in the back, it's a little different.
Right.
than what they see out there, because it's totally different when we talk to him. He's a totally nicer person.
Absolutely. Yep. This guy here, and this is a young up and comer. He's been in the business probably just over a year, maybe a little bit longer. Um, Fly Nine Noriega. You guys had a hell of a match working Coliseum in a show in Bridgeport, Connecticut. I was there. I
Fly
filmed that, so that was a good match, I thought.
Fly is also one of the names that I started seeing after after I started coming back. When I
Yeah.
came back for the Empire Pro show, I didn't really see his name before, but seeing him from then to now, he's definitely made a wave, and he got to keep up doing what he's doing, because he definitely has something. He has a raw style to him, and I like
Yeah.
that.
I keep telling him, I said, listen, I said, I was proud of him. I got to see there 2 weeks ago. I was in attendance to see his debut at Northeast Wrestling. He got squashed regardless, but it was good to see him get his debut in such of a much larger crowd and a much larger organization. So it was he's put in the work, he's put in the time, he's getting there, and he's got to be the kid's loaded with charisma on top of it. So I think that he's a great
Yeah,
professional
because
wrestler.
he's still, I mean, he runs his mouth,
Yeah,
which is good. He has the passion, and he's hungry.
yeah.
So with that, he can still go very far. He definitely can go far, and his manager is also good too.
He's
I enjoy them both together. They're a package deal. It's great working.
absolutely the two of them together. It's just you got to be careful you got to be careful what you say around them, friendly or not, because they're constantly those guys that are in character that are just gonna they'll go at you right there in front of people. It's funny. It's definitely entertaining, but they're probably like you said, they're a package deal, and they're just they got a lot to offer this industry, and they're still young.
Yeah, I've never seen somebody run around screaming it's live TV, baby, so much more than a fly dive.
Uh, so we'll get one more question about one of your opponents, and then we'll get away from this stuff. But also at Coliseum, you had a chance to wrestle another Empire original. It was Peak Money. You guys had a match over at Coliseum. That wasn't your first match for Coliseum, was it?
What, going against Peak Money?
Yeah, at Coliseum.
That was his first match. My first
That
match
was
I went against Lucas Chase.
all
The
right.
second
Yours
one I
first
went
was Lucas.
against Fly Night. And
Got
then
you.
the third one I went against Peak Money.
Okay, so I'm going out of order here. Never
Yeah.
mind. So so
Yeah, Peak Money. He's an Empire Pro original. What's funny is me and Peak Money has never stepped in a ring with each other until that day. I known him for about like 6 going on 7 years,
okay.
and I've never stepped in a ring with him. Never.
You guys probably worked the same shows a million times and just never been in the ring.
Yeah, no, actually, I did step in the ring with him one time in a tag team match. It was me and Sasha versus a reunion of Certified Sexy versus what were they called? Perfectly Sexy.
Uh, yeah, I
That was
believe that's it.
Gino and Peak Money at the time.
Was it certified sexy or perfectly sexy?
They were perfectly sexy.
Yeah.
And me and Sasha came back for one day as Certified Sexy and Empire Pro when they did a show in the Bronx.
Okay.
And that was the first time I ever worked with him. And then the second time, like a one-on-one, actually being there with him, was that show at Coliseum Pro Wrestling.
What'd you think of that, stepping in there for having known him for as long as you did, had not worked with him for quite some time, and getting in that ring with each other? I thought it was a good match. I mean, the guy's very entertaining, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's definitely entertaining. He's young. He has something. He just has to keep that hunger going. But
Right.
having that match with him, it was something that we both wanted to do for a while, because we knew each other for so long. And he also he also knows that has to learn.
Right.
So he's willing to work with anybody that can teach him something. And he He's actually, I think he's doing a few more shows. Like he was in Massachusetts the same night that he went to Coliseum that day.
I worked a show with him for Bay State Championship Wrestling. I did not make the second show because of travel issues, but I ended up making it to the Coliseum show the same night. But yeah, he worked there. Oh, grab, dang, trying to remember the first show which was late last year, who he worked. I have it on my YouTube somewhere, but I can't remember. But yeah, he's that's based out of Springfield, Massachusetts. That's Eric Rosa and Louis LeBoy. They have a really great thing going on there, man. If you should probably reach out to them at some point, and they have this nice venue that they're working with. It was like an old looks like an old orchestra theater or something like that. So
Yeah,
it looks
I've seen I believe a few matches from there. It was Bay State
yep,
Championship Wrestling, BCW.
yeah.
They have like that little theater look. It looks really nice.
Yeah, it looks like it's TV ready. Like if that if they could just fill those seats a little bit more, that would be amazing. So, to get that crowd popping, it'd be awesome on TV.
Yeah.
So I want to know what was your like influences as far as style goes? I know you mentioned Lucha Libre earlier. You worked some Lucha Libre style into your current style. In my personal opinion, what I've noticed out of you is that you work slightly like, God forbid, I mentioned this guy's name is still one of my favorites to this day, but Chris Benoit. You kind of have a little bit of his style mixed in with, like you said, Lucha Libre and such.
Yeah, just like you said, God forbid, but what I mean, Chris Benoit was my favorite wrestler when I was younger.
Me
So
too.
a
Yeah.
lot of that style, I don't really try to show it, but maybe I don't know if it's the body build or certain movements that I do or certain things that I do that relate to what he does. But yeah, I would say like my style, I would like to take a little from him, a little from the Eddie Guerrero style, where you have like that lucha with the technical. And as I got older, I started looking like more into combos,
Right.
like combo strikes, hitting into to bigger moves that have grown on me over the time.
What do you mean combo strikes? You mean something similar to like maybe like a martial arts style, mixed martial arts style or whatever, in a way?
I
Not
wouldn't say
necessarily.
I wouldn't say a martial arts style because I don't use martial arts within the move. I would say using a few tags to hit a bigger move, setting
Right.
something up bigger.
Got you. Got you.
Like when I run and I hit the cutter. Right before that, I give him that kick combo right before I hit right into the cutter. Something like that I've gained interest in. Because there's always something different that you can do, always something you can freak around with it.
Well, I mean, like what you're saying is like always something different you could do, because sometimes if you still watch wrestling today, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people, you can definitely tell a match was just set up and it's just obviously choreographed, right? I mean, so when there's a setup, say like a springboard, that somebody's going to go for a springboard cutter because that one guy just continues to do that. But you got to try to, my personal opinion, call me crazy, but you got to try to do something different. Don't always go for the same move at the same time. And I know I'm getting away. This has nothing to do with Nutrious X, but I'm just talking to wrestling in general.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah, yeah.
like the
Definitely.
thing with going into wrestling is unpredictability. That's my favorite part about professional wrestling is unpredictability, because that's what lures me as a fan in, you know?
Yeah, that's also something that I picked up when I was in learning from Joel Maximo is the innovation style.
Right.
So you always like when you come up with something. What I like to do is when I have a main move or I have something that I like to do, I like to make sure that I could come up more than 3 ways to do that move. So I
Right.
always try to do it in a different style, and also always come up with a reversal to come out of that move. Just like when I went against Empire Pro the second show back, going against Sean Venor, and he went to go for the Singapore, and he came back for the cutter. I mean, he came back for the stunner, and as he came back, landing on his feet, I hit him with the cutter. So it's like certain things there where you set it up and once you see the opening, you just go for it.
Yeah. Speaking of which, what did you think about Sean Venor? That's a guy. I mean, he was being used semi regularly around the area. I think that kid's a really good kid, and he's really, to me, he's a talented wrestler. He's just, needs maybe a little bit of charisma to kick into gear, I think.
Sean Van Noy, I would say, like with that match, I definitely had fun and it was a good match. That was my first time ever meeting Sean Van Noy before. I've
Yeah.
never, you know what I mean? I only seen him from what I've watched from when he went over there to
Yeah.
M Pro or what I looked on from the Monster Factory. But he definitely has talent, and I would like to see him more in the Northeast.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't religiously keep up with Monster Factory stuff, but I watch it on a semi-regular basis on, YouTube. I guess now they're on Apple TV. So
Yeah, I
it's
know he came down a few times. Bobby Buffett came down a few times, and
Bobby's another one. Yeah.
they're really good talent. They're something that you would like to keep around over here.
Yeah, absolutely. What else are you doing out there where you live now? Where are you in Queens?
No, I'm actually in Bronx, New York.
In the Bronx. My bad. I'm sorry. I don't want to start any wars or anything, but So what's going on in the Bronx? I'm sorry. I'm trying to be a little goofy. What's going on in the Bronx as far as wrestling goes?
Wrestling actually over here. To be honest, I haven't wrestled inside New York in I think over 5-6 years.
Really?
Yeah, once I left from FSW and I did maybe a few shows with Bree Combination Wrestling in Queens after that. I try to get away from the New York scene of wrestling, and because what I mean, going to different shows, you see the same familiar faces, and it's you run into the same thing going into the Northeast. But that's where I left, and I went to PAPW, and I started learning more of the fundamentals from Paul Roma, like the psychology, the old school style. So that's where I started learning to incorporate that old school style with the lucha style and whatever I do else. But that at that time it was pretty a good time.
Did you do some training with Roma outside, like freely outside of like just not showing up for matches or whatever? But did you train under Roma Mancini at all?
When I first did that first tag team match with
Yeah.
Gino over there, after that I went over there for a few of the training sessions where I was going on Wednesdays, and I mean, there were a few things that he taught me, Roma, like actually sitting there with us, and as we're running through the training sessions, he, I mean, hey, come to the side, hey, you could fix this, I mean, slow down a little bit, less is more, and use more of the psychology of the ring and what's around me. And, I mean, many different things where like I said, I incorporated with what I had already, and to me, it works well.
Roma, to me, in my personal opinion, is one of the greats in professional wrestling, and maybe does not get enough credit for what he does or what he did in the business. Um, and he's a hell of a trainer, from what I sound. He seems to understand still the business. He tries to instill that in his students. The less is more is a line that I use all the time when it comes to professional wrestling when I'm watching it, because I don't like watching a lot of the flippy dippy stuff or the the death matches or any of that crazy stuff. I like to watch like the story being told from beginning to end in that 6 to 10 minutes or whatnot. Do you know what I mean? And Roma, uh, you know, likes to teach that as well, I guess.
Yeah, that's exactly where I learned more of of that, like the storytelling inside a match, and
Yeah,
I mean, more of the fundamentals, and that's where I realized, I mean, it's not all about the flippy floppy shit.
right,
There's a lot more to it. There's a lot more to it. Like when I first saw it in wrestling, it was like rediscovering the art of it.
right. I mean, I guess the flippy dippy stuff is fun to watch, but you never know. I mean, somebody can land wrong on their head, and that'll be it for their entire career.
Yeah, and also what it is that a lot of matches nowadays you get back to back with that.
Yep.
So you know what I mean, you for as a fan, sitting out there. You would see one match, everybody's flipping, doing something crazy. Then the next match, you see the same thing, and by the third match, you're seeing guys doing the same thing that they're doing moves that the guy in the first match already did, or certain spots, and it's just after a while you need that storytelling match.
It's like watching, like you're saying, going to a show and you see 367 super kicks by the third or fourth match. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
that's like one of the most popular. It's like you need the psychology, but wrestling is a variety show in a way. I like a particular style, but that doesn't mean I'm not entertained by sitting there and going through a variety of different style of matches from beginning to end. You know what I mean? You can have, sure, you're gonna have your comedy spots. You're gonna have maybe a brawl, a hardcore match, what have you. So that's the fun part about professional wrestling, and it's just a gigantic thing that it brings fans together, people that like all different styles together. You know?
Yeah, it definitely does, but it also takes like certain things, like you were saying with the super kick. Back in the days when I was younger, the super kick was a big finisher.
Yeah.
Now, super kick is like it's a regular punch.
That's the same thing like a pile driver. You get dropped on your head, and people are no selling it. And it's just like when I was growing up, that was it. You were done. You know what I mean? Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff gave you a pile driver.
Not only that, is now guys are doing front flip power drivers, the Canadian destroyers and all that
Yeah,
stuff. You see people still getting up, where it kills, I guess, the story part or the kayfabe part of wrestling, but it also it's a different style within that match.
right, right. Yeah, I mean that
So
Canadian destroy.
when you see certain guys come out, you should be prepared to see that. Like when you see, I would say, Kylon King and Flash Wallace, who right now they're on fire.
They're on fire.
I mean,
Those guys are
big up
hot
to
right
those
now.
guys. They're definitely doing their thing. You know what I mean? Shout out to them. But when you see them come out, you're prepared to see something fast paced. You're prepared to see that high flying style, and something that's back and forth. When you see a guy like Lucas Chase come out, you're prepared to see someone get their ass whooped.
Yeah,
Which you also see, like you said. I mean, when you see a Lucas Chase match, you see more of that story that's being told. And the funny part is, he stands out so much that he's telling his own story at the same time while he's telling the story of the match.
right. Yeah, yeah. I like you said, that's just a testament as to what we were speaking earlier about how this guy's, probably one of the best in the Northeast. You know what I mean? And Kylon, I think, is probably he works a little bit of a different style from Flash, but I think that he is another phenomenal performer. That guy, he I guess he works a little bit of I guess a Japanese style sometimes in his style. You know what I mean, as well as the grappling, and he does go for a couple high spots, which is not overly done. So, but he's just another one that I would love to see. I watch him, basically him and Flash on TV every week on what's that called? Wrestling Open. But they're everywhere nowadays, and it's awesome to see somebody like that you started watching in such an early part of their career grow so much. And I'd love to see Kylon sign somewhere as well. You know,
Yeah, no, it's all based on that hunger. Like I said, that
yeah,
hunger. When you have it gets you places because like you said, 3-4 years ago, Flash Wallace was just started.
yeah,
Flash Wallace was just finished. He just finished training. He was having his first few shows, and look at him now. He's on fire right now.
yeah.
Same thing with Kylon, on fire. But their styles complement each other, and that's what makes them a great tag team.
Let's see what is what's in store for you coming up. Do you have anything coming up anytime soon?
So far, the only thing I have coming up is Coliseum Pro Wrestling. I believe April 28th
April 28th. Okay.
in West
Was your
Haven.
match in, was your match announced? I'm trying to remember.
Not as of yet,
Oh,
but
okay.
I am attending the show.
Okay, you will be at that show. I remember two matches were announced. I announced them earlier on the podcast another time, and I just trying to remember exactly what they were. Now I
Yeah, I
remember them.
think they only announced two as of right now.
You're right. But so that's it. April 28th, the Elks Lodge in West Haven, Connecticut. I urge everybody out to get out there because It's going to be a good show. That last show was packed and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it definitely was. Coliseum is they're gaining their crowd.
Yeah.
And it's just something good. I mean, they got a few eyes on them. The only thing they can do is get better from there.
Yeah. And it took a little time. The first couple shows were small. And then that one actually had the most amount of people, which was just to see that room packed. My personal opinion, that was just awesome. You know what I mean? Because it's like I've been to, what did they run, 5 shows, I believe, or 4 or 5 shows last year, which was, since they started. And I've been at every single one of them. And to see, they had a lull when they went away from that building that one night. They went to Bridgeport, and it was like it didn't work out the way
It
they
was,
wanted.
it was the school.
Yeah, yeah. It was the YMCA, I think, right? Maybe.
Yeah, I believe.
Yeah. So then that didn't work out the way they wanted to, but then they ended up coming back to that Elks, and they packed the place for that next match. Like literally packed. It was just a hot room. The crowd was on fire. We saw a new champion crowned in Hunter Tarka defeating Lucas Chase. That was a lot of fun. That show.
Yeah, that show was. It definitely had a few highlight matches.
Yeah.
It was a good show, and the crowd did show up for that one. Definitely, I hope that they show up for the next one because there's more action to be seen over there in Coliseum Pro Wrestling. This is a company that just started, but you know what I mean, at the same time, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. They got a good bunch of guys over there, and hopefully, like I said, this next one is going to be good. We're going to be promoting it all over here on the podcast, and I guess that's pretty much it. So, is there anywhere you want to point the fans so that they could find you?
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You could put at Nutrious X, and also on YouTube you could put at Nutrious X, or if not, you can also put at Nonstop NX, and you'll catch me on YouTube and Instagram also with those two.
Check out the YouTube channel. There's a lot of great action on there.
With the YouTube channel, I have matches, I have interviews, I have promos, stuff going back from when I first started to all the way to now. Some of the wildest moments, some of the best matches that I've had.
You can see that clean cut Nutrious X as a youngster.
Yeah. Short hair, wet behind the ears, didn't know nothing, thought he was the shit.
I want to thank you so much. What's that?
Okay, say what you said.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for joining me here tonight. It was a pleasure to sit down with you and talk your professional wrestling career.
Yeah, it definitely was. Hopefully we could set something up next time and get another one going. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It was definitely because this is one of my first interviews in a while that I've done, and it feels good.
Wrestling fans, promoters, wrestlers, and anyone who enjoys pro wrestling now have something new to be excited about. The Wrestling Fans International Association, the WFIA, is back. WFIA is an association that exists to promote, grow, and support professional wrestling throughout the world. Membership is free. Your membership includes a free digital bi-monthly publication of the Wrestling Fan News newsletter, association updates, voting privileges, and much more. Please go to thewfia.org, that's THEWFIA.org, and become a member today.